question, but I want to get to my next guest. As we know, Brexit is a coming. It's a coming on the 29th of March. And whether it's coming peacefully or whether it's coming in an absolute shambles of a way, it's a coming. And unless something happens to put it off, it's going to happen, deal or no deal. And there's now a serious movement building to ask the question, well, should we follow them out? Should Ireland follow Britain out of the European Union and have Irexit as opposed to Brexit? Should we consider following the UK out of the EU? There is a Facebook page called Irexit Freedom, which has in or around 1,000 followers at this stage, but gathering more and more. And there's a man called Hermann Kelly, who's presently Director of Communications at the Europe of Freedom and Democracy Group in the European Parliament. And Hermann Kelly joins me on the phone now. Hermann, this is the group. Good morning to you. This is the group of which Nigel Farage is a member, isn't that right?
That's right. He's president, yeah.
He's president
and
at the moment.
There's 42 other MEPs in the group from 7 different nations: Germans, Italians, Czechs, Slovaks, all different nationalities.
Why would we want to leave the European Union, Hermann?
Because Irish men and women struggled for centuries to leave a political union we were in before with Britain, and that was called the British Empire. And the British Empire, as a political union, didn't serve our interests because we were 16% in the Westminster Parliament. In the EU Parliament, we are less than 1%. We are less than 1% of the EU population, less than 1% of the votes in the European Parliament. Our interests are not served. And if the EU was of any benefit, or the common market was of any benefit in the 70s and 80s, going forward, it's not, because now Ireland is a net contributor to the European Union. We give them €2.7 billion per year. That means that we are paying people in Brussels who we didn't elect and who we can't get rid of to make our laws. I think that's a very poor deal. Who out there listening actually thinks it's a good deal to pay people we can't elect to make our laws? For me, that's madness.
But you see, Hermann, are they making our laws, or are they just making a framework on which our own law is structured? Like, that's often been put out there. Farage is a great man for putting that out.
EU regulations are directly and immediately applicable in Ireland. Ireland, the Dáil has no say, cannot change these regulations. It's like, and why are people in Bratislava or in Stockholm or in Budapest, why are they having a say on our laws? Irish people, like, come on,
but don't we have a say on theirs as well? You know, isn't that what a big?
Hey, I don't want to tell people in Bratislava how to live their lives. That's their own business. I wish them the very best, but I certainly don't want to tell them how to live their lives, and I certainly don't believe that they should have a say on the laws which affect Irish people. We can do it for ourselves. We can make our own laws. We can govern our own country. This kind of, cultural or self-loathing that we're not worthy to make our own laws, we're not capable of governing our own country, I believe is false.
You see, we've also benefited, haven't we? I mean, we've got motorways and we've got other things, other bits of infrastructure that we wouldn't have had without the European Union. Well, that's very questionable.
According to Irish government figures, since we joined the common market, the economic community, we've received 44 billion in cash. Right, that's the government figures. The stitch-up, the private Franco-German bank debt that the EU and the ECB imposed on Ireland in 2012, that was 64 billion imposed quite unjustly on the Irish taxpayer, and which our children will pay off. And on top of that, we are an island nation. We have massive fishing waters, 200 kilometres, I'm not sure it's miles or kilometres, to the west of Ireland, huge fisheries, and out of our fisheries, out of our waters, the EU boats have taken 200 billion worth of fish out of our waters, while Irish fishermen have got only 8% of the quota. We should have a massive fisheries as a country. So in regards the net benefit that we have received, well, we haven't, because we received 44 billion. We give them 64 billion immediately in for the banks, and they also took 200 billion out of our waters and fish. So I would suggest with those figures that we're not a net beneficiary from EU membership at all. And going forward, and people can make an argument, yeah, the EU has been good for Ireland, but going forward, it's going to get much worse, because now we're going into a situation where we shall be a net contributor to the EU budget, not a recipient. So that means that all the farmers around the country who receive CAP are receiving that from the Irish taxpayer. Mm-hmm. They're not receiving money from Brussels. It's the Irish taxpayer who are paying all that. So if we were to leave the European Union, we wouldn't have to contribute to their budget. We would have complete control over our lawmaking, the laws that affect our country. We would also be leaving the EU customs union. That means we are then free to make trade deals with other countries around the world.
Just pick you up on that one now.
Yes.
Herman, because, and what you say, a lot of people will say, yeah, the guy's making perfect sense. Now, one thing we do very, very well in this country is we produce food.
Yes.
It's widely accepted that we produce some of the best food in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, and the best cheddar cheese by far, yes.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Which isn't bad for you anymore, the doctors now say.
So could you believe it?
I know, but...
Do you believe that, PJ?
I think it's great news. But at the same time, Herman, why would we cut off, effectively, 26 countries into which to trade all of that food nice and handy? Why would we bring that workload on ourselves trying to create new markets?
Yeah, like the EU itself is, as a percentage of world population and of world GDP, is shrinking all the time. I think it's 15% of the world's GDP at the minute. The population is going down. This percentage of GDP in global terms is going down. So the EU is a shrinking market. The markets that are growing are in China, are in Brazil, are in India, the States and Russia. All these huge countries, the EU doesn't have trade agreements with these huge growing countries. So being outside the EU will give us the ability to trade with these countries. And in regards to trading, look, trade is done business to business. It's not done government to government. And if our product is good and people want to buy it, well, we can sell it around the world. The problem with the EU is that it's not a free trade area. It is a customs union. That means that it puts tariffs on the food, the clothes, goods that we can buy. It makes our food and clothes more expensive. Outside the customs union, we're free to trade, and our goods will be cheaper. And the thing is, because we're a net contributor, farmers who are receiving CAP payments would get that directly from the Irish government. It wouldn't come from Brussels with lots of regulations and stipulations and demands that they may have for their own benefit.
I was watching an interview, or an attempt rather, by a Channel 4 journalist who was very doggedly trying to get an answer to a question out of Jeremy Corbyn during the week.
Is this what he answered it 6 times?
He attempted to ask him 6 times and still didn't get an answer. So how would we be better? In what way? Okay, I'm a guy, do my job, have a family, run a car, like a holiday, live a fairly simple old life, right?
Yes.
How would I be better, or how would my colleagues here behind the window, how would they be better and their families be better if we left the EU in the morning?
Well, immediately we would have back control over fisheries. That's a massive benefit to the Irish economy. We would be employing a hell of a lot more people. We would no longer be making a contribution to the EU budget. We would be saving money, which could be invested in Ireland. We would protect the corporate tax regime which that we have in Ireland, which takes in a lot of investment. That wouldn't be. It's currently under attack from the EU, who want to get rid of it because they're jealous of it.
But we've stood fast on that, and the government have stood very fast on that.
Yeah, but they don't have the power. They can only protect the tax rate. They cannot. The Irish government doesn't have the final say on the tax base, which is the way they decide how the money paid to corporations is divvied out. Now, the EU want to wipe that out. And look what's... and also, there's other things as well. We would also, by leaving the EU, protect our military neutrality, which has been sold out pretty much already. We're already members of EU battle groups. We joined PESCO in April, which means that over the next 2 years, we have to pay an additional 36 million to do these commitments to this PESCO, which is an antechamber to an EU army. And also,
you see, the people who support PESCO tell us that that's a nonsense argument.
It's funny, the vast majority of people in the country want to maintain Irish military neutrality, but the TDs in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil traipsed into the Dáil there quietly on a Monday without telling anybody and voted that we join PESCO.
And why do you think they did that?
Because, where in Ireland before we were ruled in 2012, our government was basically the Troika. They had complete control over financial policy in Ireland.
Mainly because the government of the day had made a complete hames of the whole thing, and we were just in a mess.
Well,
and we needed
because
help.
we were members of the euro, which was completely the wrong currency for the Irish economy. But we'll move on. 2012, we were ruled by the EU, the Troika, the Commission, ECB, whatever. And now we're ruled pretty much by the Troika of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, who are all European Unionists, Euro loyalists. Their loyalty is to Brussels. They are happy to remain in the Euro, happy to remain in the EU, and take EU regulations and have them imposed in Ireland. We want to set up a political movement to take back control of our laws, our money and our borders, so that it's Irish people themselves who have final say over the laws in the country and who basically work in their own interests, not in the interests or for the benefit of people in Brussels or in Germany. And bottom line is the EU is run for the people of Germany.
You still, Herman, actually haven't answered the question I asked you, that for my family and my colleagues' families, how would our life change?
Immediately your food would be cheaper because we're outside the EU customs union. 2, your tax would be less because you wouldn't be having to pay contributions to the European budget. And 3, the Irish country, the Dáil, would have complete and utter control over all the laws that are applied in Ireland. They wouldn't be made somewhere else by someone else for their benefit.
See, the other thing is we produce so much food for export.
Yes,
that we wouldn't be, if all our trade deals broke down. What would we do with all that milk and beef? We can't eat it all ourselves.
Yeah. As best we try, we can't eat it all ourselves. That's right. The UK is Ireland's largest trading partner. There's more than 1.2 billion of goods and services traded between us every week. The UK is leaving the European Union. That creates difficulties in regards to trade between the UK and Ireland, and that's why there would be a possibility of a hard border, which would be imposed by the European Commission. If we were outside the European Union, we would be free to make our own trade deals, and basically Ireland and Britain would be jumping at each other to have a mutual trade deal because it's in the mutual benefit of both countries.
What about all the hundreds of thousands? I've heard MP after MP stand up in the House of Parliament and say about how worried they are for jobs in their constituency. I heard an estimate the other night on Nigel Farage's radio programme, an estimate of 400,000 jobs gone.
Well,
we here would be decimated if that happened.
Well, that was Project Fear in the UK. We're told if on the day that if they voted leave, that the sky would fall down. There'd be hundreds of thousands of people unemployed, and everybody would be have a personal bill of 4.6 thousand. That was, look, it didn't work. It was boring. It was basically lies. People saw through it and they voted to leave. Another reason they voted to leave was because they also wanted to take back control of their laws, their money, and their borders. Another big thing in Britain was that like in the 2004 onwards, Ireland, we were in the euro. We had cheap credit from the euro. Interest rates were 2%. They should have been around 8% because our economy was overheating. On top of that, we also had, because of EU membership, there's complete free movement of anybody who wants to come from the EU can come to Ireland.
Basically, and we can go the other way.
Yeah, not very much, but yeah,
we can.
We can. Not as many people go the other way. But only in 2008, etc., we were importing hundreds of thousands of people from Eastern Europe with cheap credit from the euro. We had a building boom and bust. The consequences of that is that in 2012, 152,000 people had to leave the country. So losing control of your economic policy and your immigration policy because of EU membership was incredibly damaging for Irish people.